So you're going to learn about what kurinuki is and the kind of piece you're going to make. Sam, do you have a notebook? Otherwise, I can lend you one. Okay, I got one right here. Come and grab that one there, and do you have something to write with? Okay, I got you covered there too. Okay, thanks. So there's some new vocabulary that I want you to be on top of. So please take a couple minutes to get these 5 new terms into your notebook. I'm going to talk you through them as you're writing them. So the first new term is kurinuki. Kurinuki is a Japanese term referring to the hand-building technique of starting with a solid block of clay and hollowing it out to make the interior. This is what you're going to be doing for this project. This is a Japanese technique of starting with a solid block of clay, shaping it, hacking it open, and then hollowing it out. Term number 2 is flange. A flange is a raised edge that keeps your lid fitted. So after you have hollowed out your solid mass so that it's hollow inside, you're going to be doing a little extra carving around the lid of the box to make a flange so that that flange fits down inside the box and keeps the lid from shifting around. Term number 3 is subtractive. Subtractive means removing material to get to the desired form. So most of what we do in ceramics is additive, where we're adding coils of clay, or we're adding slabs of clay, or we're adding noses and legs and tails onto our pinch pot animal. But this is one project that's entirely subtractive. You're going to be removing material to get to the desired form. Term number 4 is aesthetic. The aesthetic is the look or the vibe of an object. So you can have a grunge aesthetic, you can have a very clean aesthetic, you can have a geometric aesthetic, you can have a very naturey, wild and naturey aesthetic. There's lots of different looks that we have in our lives. The way that we dress is an aesthetic. We make choices about how we want our look to come off to people, or how we want our vibe to come off to others. So that also applies in ceramics. So the aesthetic that you're going to be learning about and maybe utilizing, you're not going to have to use it, but it's kind of a fun one, is wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi is a Japanese aesthetic that finds beauty in imperfection. So the Japanese people believe that when you have something that you find in nature, like a rock, like a leaf, like a piece of driftwood, that imperfection, that the unpredictable kind of nature-based way of designing things is really beautiful. And those things that are imperfect have a lot of value. So that idea is called wabi-sabi. And maybe you've heard of this before. Sometimes people use this to describe if they're building something and it doesn't quite look the way it's supposed to look. They say, well, that's pretty wabi-sabi. So that has a degree of truth to it. It's when something turns out imperfect, but through that imperfectness, you see a great degree of beauty. Okay. So those are the new five terms you need in your notebook. I'm going to give you another 20 seconds or so to finish writing, and then we're going to move on. Hey, Cameron. Log on to Google Meet, please, and then grab a notebook. Thanks. All right. If you haven't finished writing these vocab words down yet, please take a photo so you can get them at your own time. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I'm going to play a couple videos now of people using the kurinuki technique to make wabi-sabi boxes. Now, all these examples that I could find in the videos were the wabi-sabi look. So they're going to be beating up the clay. They're going to be paddling the clay to make it look more rough and like it came from nature. Just know that that's an option. You could do that for your box project, but it's not what you have to do. You could make yours more clean and neat if that's your preference. So I'm going to play you a couple videos. I'm not sure how this is going to work, whether it'll be laggy or not, but we'll do our best. You don't have all those tools, but that's okay. I love the little sound of the smacking the clay. So this is why I gave you that ribbon tool, so that you could hollow out your box using the ribbon tool. This is one clay tool that you do actually have. So this artist is doing all the steps all in one day. We are not going to do it all in one day. We're going to make the form one day, let it firm up, and then do the shaving off of the lid and the carving throughout the rest of the week. This artist also is not making a flange on her work, which means that lid is not fitted. So we will definitely be making a flange. So you can see this is a really different way than we've ever worked before, this entirely subtractive technique. And I think it's going to be an interesting challenge to be able to hollow out the walls to be consistent thickness, and we'll talk about ways to make sure that that happens. But I think you'll enjoy just working in such a vastly different way than we've ever done before. So I'm excited to see what you do with this. And the shape, the overall shape that you choose, she chose a box and then paddled it with the stick. But the shape you choose is totally up to you. It does not have to be a box. I've been calling this a box because it has a lid to it, and boxes have lids, but it does not have to be a cube shape. It can be a heart shape, it can be a diamond shape, it can be an oval shape, it can be a weird mountain shape, it can be any shape you want. And I'm going to show you more examples, such as this one. So let's take a look at this artist doing a kurinuki. So this artist has a number of paddles that he or she is using. They're using the side of the paddle, the edge of the paddle. I know you don't have paddles at home, but you might have a piece of wood, you know, like a little 2x4 that you could use if you like this paddle technique. Again, you don't have to do it. I think it sounds kind of fun, that would beat up the clay a little bit. So they're using a wire cutter to cut the lid and then scooping it up. So this artist is putting a flange on their box. See how they added the extra little foil of clay that sticks up from the body of the box? And that little edge is what's going to keep that lid fitted, so the lid does not slide around. I do not have blow torches for you to use, sorry. But hopefully you have a hairdryer. So now they're adding a handle in the shape of a beetle. And just one thing that you're going to have to add on your kurinuki box, you're going to have to add a handle of some kind. Certainly doesn't have to be a beetle, but something creative, not just a ball stuck on the top, but something creative that you can attach to the top of your box that will act as a handle. Okay, there's one more video I'm going to show you. In this video, the artist is making an incense holder where the smoke is going to come out through the little holes that she carves. And she's actually going to narrate this one, so I won't talk.
Here I'll be showing you how to make a kurinuki smoke dome, which I like to call volcanoes. So basically these are jars for burning incense, and the smoke will escape through holes that we make. I first use a dome of clay, which I use a wire to cut the top off. I then go around and clean up the edges to make more of a circle in the base. Here I'm marking out where the platform for the incense will go, and then remove the clay from the outside of this circle. Here I'm using a sponge just to clean up the edges. I then remove the clay from the inside of the dome from the top. So this is just to hollow out the lid of the jar. Here I'm moving more clay from the outside of the bottom part of the smoke dome. This is just to allow the jar to fit snugly over the top. Here I'm going in and
looking for, did you do that carving? Did you test your thickness so that you know that it is consistent all the way through? Next requirement, the lid must have a flange that makes it fitted and a creative handle that works with the look of the pot, that works with the aesthetic of the box. So the lid needs a flange and a creative handle. And then finally, the marks, the designs, and the overall aesthetic of this box should look purposeful, like you tried to do what the end result turned out like. Not like, oh, it fell on the floor, I'm just going to go with that. I want it to look purposeful, like each mark should be purposeful. How you carve it, how you sand it, smooth it, hack at it, paddle it, should look purposeful. It should be balanced. Aesthetic, whether you've chosen a really clean, neat, precise aesthetic, or whether you've throughout the entire piece. So those are the things I want you to have in your mind as you're doing sketching today and having in your mind as you're working on this project throughout the next several days. Okay, if you didn't finish writing these requirements down, snap a picture so that you can finish writing at your own time. I'm going to move on in 3, 2, 1. So I mentioned clean aesthetic as a contrast to wabi-sabi. This is kind of what I mean. The pot on the left is what I would call a clean aesthetic. It's a cylinder, the lines are really straight, the curves are really even, everything is smoothed out, pretty well. And so that's an example of a clean aesthetic. The one on the right is wabi-sabi, where it is a little bit more, it kind of looks like a rock that you would find if you were hiking in the mountains. So it's a little bit more angular, it's a lot more kind of random cuts to it, but while it's random, it also is still purposeful. You can tell that the cuts were made in a purposeful way. So I just wanted to point that out one more time so that you were aware of the difference between clean aesthetic, wabi-sabi. They're both great. They're both fine and acceptable to use. So this is what you're doing today. You're going to sketch 3 to 5 ideas for this project. You're going to include notes in the side of your sketches as to which form you plan to make. Is it going to be a garlic box? Is it going to be a candle holder? Is it going to be incense box? Is it going to be jewelry box? Just leave a note for me on the side of your sketches. And then you're going to get a large-ish block of clay from your bag. Maybe it's going to be all the clay that you have left in your bag. Actually, you don't want to use every bit of clay you have left because you're going to need a little bit for your handle. So almost all the clay in your bag would be fine. But otherwise, I don't want to tell you an exact amount of clay. Like usually I tell you grapefruit of clay, softball of clay. I want you to kind of choose your own amount of clay, but realize that the size needs to be, the ending size of your box needs to be somewhere in that 5 by 5 by 5 range-ish. Once you have your largest block of clay, wedge it, and then you're going to begin to compress it on the table, on your wedging cloth, maybe on the floor. If your table is too weak and wobbly, you can use your hands to compress it. You can use a wood paddle to compress it. Basically, we want to make the clay really, really firm. So when we cut it open and do our carving tomorrow, everything is really consistent and we're not going to run into air pockets or hard chunks or anything like that. So once you have your outer shape exactly how you want it to be, then you're going to snap a picture of your sketches that you did next to your shape that you made for today. And that's what's going to be the assignment that you submit by 10 p.m. And then you're going to put your shape in a bag, but you're going to leave that bag open. We want this to get leather hard for tomorrow, because tomorrow's the day we're going to take your wire cutter and we're going to slice off the top. And we're going to start using the kurinuki technique to subtract the clay out of the center. So we want that clay to be firmed up a little bit before we do that carving. So those are your steps for today. This is your assignment for today. I am going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to demonstrate how you could begin doing this project. So I am going to, pin myself so I can see it a little bit better. So these are my sketches for this project. So I have kind of a wabi-sabi box that has holes in it. I thought maybe I would use it for incense, but I don't use incense. So I think I'm going to use it for a garlic box. This one is a heart shape that would be more of a jewelry box. And this is kind of an elongated one, almost like a butter dish. But I would not keep butter in it. That would be, I guess, kind of a jewelry box too. But this is really the one that I want to do. The kind of almost like a little bit like the kurinuki one in the first video that we saw, or kind of a combination between the first video and the second video. So I'm going to take some clay from my bag, and I have kind of a lot of clay left. Those of you who are here, if you want to come over for this, that's fine. You won't necessarily need to view the screen anymore. I've got a lot of clay left, and I don't think that I want to use this entire amount of clay because that box would be enormous. So I'm going to take maybe half of this chunk of clay. Yeah, that's a pretty good amount right there. So I'm going to compress this on my table. It's making my camera jump. And even just by slamming it on the table, I'm kind of getting what could be maybe sort of an interesting shape. So I'm going to start to kind of explore that and see where this takes me. That's kind of, I don't know, kind of an interesting shape. So that could be my starting point. Another thing that I could do, so this is just a random piece of wood that I have here in my classroom. I can use this to help me start to firm up that shape. It's kind of starting to look a little bit like a house. I don't really want it to look like a house. I could also use my hands. If you're doing something that's a little bit more precise, like that heart shape, if I wanted to do the heart-shaped vase, maybe I would take and do some cutting with a knife. You have that plastic knife that I gave you. You could do some more kind of targeted cutting. So if I wanted, for example, this area to be flat, I could take my knife tool and do some shaping that's a little bit more precise. So the hard thing about this, it's both easy and hard. It's hard to know when you're done if you're doing something that doesn't have a very precise shape. So I'm just kind of like winging it. And when I think that it looks satisfactory and interesting, that's when I'm going to reach my stopping point. So it kind of is starting to look like a gemstone a little bit, kind of similar to that design I did on my mug, which I don't hate. Kind of like that shape right there. So I might go with something like that. In the video that you saw, they did some using the edge of a piece of wood to add some texture. So if you want to do that and texturize the outside, that would be awesome. You could probably use your wood tray to do some tapping or some texturizing. So be creative with this, mess around. And if you don't like it, just keep paddling it until it's a shape that you do like. Or, as I said before, if you have something that's very specific in your mind, like a heart shape, like a perfect square, like a star shape, you know, just keep carving at it until it has a shape that's really satisfying to you. Now I'm trying to get some really sharp edges there, and the clay is just kind of soft. It just kind of keeps moving. So I might leave it at this point for today. And then tomorrow, when my clay is a little bit more firm, I might paddle it a little bit more so that I can get a little bit more sharp edges and a little bit more precision. So my assignment for today would be to take a photo of my paddled solid form next to my sketches. And then this lump is going to go in my bag. And I'm going to leave that bag puffed open, so a lot of air can get to it, so it can firm up for tomorrow, so I can hack off the lid and start carving tomorrow, okay? So that's it for today. It's not really too much work. You're just gonna be doing some thinking about designs, and then you're gonna be smacking some clay around for a little bit. It should be pretty fun. Good day to get out your aggression on the clay. So if you have any questions, please stick around for the end of the Google Meet, and I would be happy to chat with you. If you don't have any questions, you can sign off for today. Have a really good day. Good luck. Message me if you run into any troubles. And don't forget, bring your pots back to fire if you want them fired.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'm just stopping the recording.